Hi there. How is everyone? Good morning, good evening, and good day to the folks joining from across the globe. Especially for the folks who are joining from India. Thank you so much for joining at this hour. Good evening, guys. I'm Shama Sundar Duriseti, your host for today. I'm also the co-founder of Yomo.design and the co-chair for this Moving Stories storytelling challenge. And I'll be walking you through this session today. Um, Along with me, we have Meena Kodanaraman, our storyteller, our chief guest for today. She is a researcher, and she's been a design strategist. She runs a company on research called Quickfish. Um, Along with me, we also have Nisha Rana. She's a designer who is joining us from Toronto today, and she's our partner in crime for this program. And along with me, we also have Mr. Kaladar Bapu. I guess most of you know him. He's the founder of Yomo, owner of UX India, and the mastermind behind this program that we are going to talk about today. So, to start with, why we here, right? So, we are all designers, so we know how important storytelling is for our profession. Um, at, but at the same time, we know that storytelling is a really hard art. It's not very easy to tell stories that um, not just inform people, but also influence them in a way that it moves them and it makes them to think about a problem or a situation, and thereby it takes them to it makes them to take an action, right? So the agenda for today is to take a deep dive into storytelling and then see how we as designers can leverage storytelling in our day-to-day practice, and in doing so, identify problems, look at the problems, the situations, and empathize with people around us, and then bring out the right stories so that we can focus on the right problems, and then bring the change that we want to see in this world. So we're going to look at so to start with, we're going to understand what this whole program is all about, as in moving stories, why we have even conceived of this program, and then how you can take part in this challenge. And then we are going to spend good amount of time in talking to our guest speaker Meena to understand how to go about storytelling, how to tell compelling, powerful stories, so that we can drive change, make people to think of it, and get what we see, um, and what we see as a problem, and then why we see it as an important problem, and convey it in a way it gets to people who are uh, uh, watching these stories, right? So at the end of it, I think if we don't successfully tell these stories to our audience, then we haven't said anything, right? So at the end of it, the goal is to move them, think like us, and then act. Once that is done, then we're going to come back and then take a deep dive into the details of this contest, um, and then at the end of it, how you can take part in this contest and then be part of the change. With this, I'm going to hand over to Kaladar Babu to introduce us to this program and then understand why this is important as we think from Design.
Yep. Uh, Thank you. Thank you, Sham. Um, Good morning and good evening, guys. So, as you are all aware that we have started UX India as the conference, but in fact, we had UMO Design Foundation was the main foundation. We actually instrumental for bringing this up, like UX India as a conference. So at one point of time, like during this pandemic, I was started thinking about what are we been doing. We are competing with conferences, so that's not our main business. Our main business is to bring this community together. So it actually took a while for me to think about what can we do during this pandemic time as one of the oldest community in India, UMO Design Foundation. So that's how it actually introspected a lot of time, and then finally we came up with this UMO Unites with a six wonderful initiatives I think you've already seen that user express, explore, and experience, and also excel and execute. All these six has got a six different purposes and goals for it. Through Explore, recently we have concluded we got a great, uh, you know, uh, kind of 1,200 plus participation, not just only from the design community all over the globe. We have received around like 1,200 people from families and also professionals and students, and they've done a great job with the help of mentors, like around 200 plus mentors actually helped them, and they formed as teams, and mentors have helped them to be successful in this journey of 2 weeks, and they came up with wonderful movies to explain about what they've done, and they done a presentation, and then they actually pitched the project. So most of you who are already been in this process in the Explore, you already started making movie. So right now there is an extension to that. That's what we want to talk about it. And Express is the one thing we wanted to discuss about, how you actually can tell a story so you understand user perspective. So in generally if you see any of the process diagrams or double diamond or design thinking process, we always talk about empathy is one thing. You say that understand, keep yourself in user shoes, but we never been taught or told about how to do that. We are only being told that okay, think from user's perspective, but in reality that the truth is something which is it remains same, but how well you understand your perspectives would change. So if you try to understand in a storytelling manner, you actually involve and you absorb that the pain and pain points, and then it actually helps you as to understand users' requirements and what users actually going through it, and it helps you in a design process. So, in fact, storytelling is used in a creative and memorable ways in different, areas like filmmaking or photography and different areas. In design, very few people actually talk about it and practice it. So that's a major aim for this or goal for this idea to run this express. I would actually request Sham to talk about moving stories, and also like we have a wonderful session with Meena and Nisha. They talk about how does actually helpful and how to create a story and how to use it for design. And I'm actually welcoming you all ask for questions, and so that all four of us actually can try to answer you. And this actually is going to be a continual process, and a lot of goodies we are planning. And of course you're all aware that we have actually keep this 16th edition of UX India conference as a remote online conference, which is going to happen in the second week of December, 7th to 12th. And if you are qualified enough for this story, if you submit your story, if it is qualifies, you will get a free entry to the conference too, and more. So we're going to share it then. So I would request Sham to talk about moving stories and how to participate, and he's going to talk about a great story from his own experience. Sham,
Thank you, Bapu.
yeah.
Thank you, Bapu, and thanks everyone once again. I think uh, storytelling, as we all understand, is a very it's an essential art for us as designers, but also at the same time it's a very hard thing. Uh, it's one thing to observe things, feel empathy towards pe- the people, the subject that we see day in and day out, on and off, and all those things. But then to take it and then to convey it in a way, to package it in a way that you convey the same emotions that you feel, is a completely different thing, right? So um, uh, we are going to look at that. But before that, I'm going to share one of my own personal experiences. But even before that, I would like to thank everyone. In this call today, we have people who have registered to this challenge, Moving Stories Challenge, and then we also have people from our broader community. I would like to have all of them on the same page, and then as a community, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we tell these stories. and we all have stories to tell. Even if it means it's a personal story, it's a story that has to be told, right? So to start with, I'm going to share a story which is very personal to me. This by no means is a picture that anyway relates to me, but uh, through this picture, I'm going to tell a story about my father, who any grandfather is so fond of talking to their grandchildren. And lately, he has been experiencing hearing issues. So what it meant is, even though his kids, it's us in this case, who live in the US, and then my my father and mom lives in India, and then no matter what we're doing in terms of latest technology and whatnot. So in this case, what we did is we have sent him hearing aids, state of the art, best hearing aids. But then in terms of technology, hearing aids is still not there. Wherein if you are someone who is not familiar with the technology, uh, you can fix all the problems by yourself. So in this case, you still have to depend on a technician. So post hearing aid issues, in the beginning he was fine to talk with all of us and all those things, but then technology being technology, it started showing issues and all that stuff. And because of that, he started feeling embarrassed. And then he being a very talkative guy, he's not able to talk that freely anymore because he's, he can't hear, and then he can't get into conversations and all that stuff. And look at those dots, right? So the way these dots have been arranged is because so as we all know, in empathy mapping and customer journey mapping, you start on a high and then you feel embarrassed because of these issues. And then yes, of course, with hearing aids you feel better, but then they are still not close to being something that is natural. And added on top of that, these days he has been facing issues with this audio quality, and then he has to change a few components and all that stuff. And then for this, he has to depend on a technician. And then because of pandemic, he can't go out. And then in the process, he's totally frustrated. Can we do anything about this? It's my own personal empathy story, which I wanted to share. The reason why I'm trying to share this is we all have both personal stories and we have stories around us. There are so many stories out there in the world. Once we start observing, we will know how, um, how much gap is there, right? So especially on top of that, pandemic has only exposed the gaps out there, be it in the society, be it in our own personal lives, uh, by either by making the problems more apparent, more visible. And it's for us as designers to go and get these stories, share these stories, and then lead change, right? So with this, I'm going to bring in the spotlight of the day. Meena Kodandaraman and Nisha Rana are going to help us walk through understanding storytelling in design, how to go about storytelling in design, and then how do we designers can tell effective stories. Nisha Rana, please take over.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shyam, for that lovely story. Um, Hello, everyone. Hello, audience. Um, Very warm welcome to all of you to Hear More Storytelling and Design. I'm in conversation with Meena Kodandaraman. Meena is an experienced strategist. She's a storyteller. And today we're going to go over a few topics like the importance of storytelling in design and design process, how to convey and build empathy in the storytelling, and if possible, a few examples and case studies on the impact of storytelling in the world of design. So here, Meena, hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on this.
Thank you for joining us. Um, so a little background on about Meena is she's a great cook. She has hosted cooking show. She has written children's books, and she's also trained in South Indian classical music. So with all these diverse backgrounds, Meena, how do you think, or what is the importance of storytelling in these fields been, and also how does it apply to the world of design?
That is a great question. So, first of all, thanks for the introduction and thanks for starting us off. So, my background is a little varied. I think I'm a little ADD, honestly, so I like a lot of different things. But in terms of storytelling, I found that being able to share stories about how I grew up. I grew up in Canada, so woohoo to Canada, because I know we're both
Yay.
Canadians. So, but it's important for my kids, especially now, to be able to understand the way I was brought up. I was born and brought up in Canada, but my parents really wanted to maintain a lot of tradition from India. So they were very careful about teaching us, language and culture and the food and the music, which is so rich and so vast in India. But they wanted to make sure we were very comfortable with that. Now, fast forward to the generation with my children, they're now one removed. Their mom sort of talks like them and is a little bit more like them. But there are gaps in their experience that sometimes they talk to me about. And if I can relate that back to stories from my childhood of how I might have done certain things or how I might have learned to cook with my dad and my mom, because they're both fantastic cooks, it gives them the ability to be able to immerse themselves in my world and understand exactly how I was actually exposed to all these things. But it also gives them a chance to problem solve a little bit, because they see how I might have addressed a particular situation, how I might tell them how my parents might have addressed it completely differently, but then they get a chance to actually connect the dots and bring it into their world towards some sort of solution that makes sense to them. So I think that's always an important part of our lives, is to be able to sort of make decisions for ourselves, if that's fair to say, but base it on things that we feel give us confidence in that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. With my kids born here, and I'm struggling with the things that how and what I can teach them and what they're gonna grow up with. That's good insight, Meena. Very nice that you touched upon your background and growing up. Uh, so, um, so what aspect of storytelling, like as such, that is effective, you would say, when we try to design a product or an interface? Uh, so, how is the aspect of storytelling important or effective in designing and in the process of design?
Another great question. If you look at a way a lot of designers actually move today and actually are doing their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to be a designer. It's a lot of times we work against efficiencies, we work against optimization. How can we actually get something out quickly? How can we innovate? How can we disrupt? We throw all these words around, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it makes it a very challenging position for designers, because they basically have to reach inward and think, either alone or with their teams. What are we going to do with this? How are we going to actually solve for a problem?
Yeah.
What is missing is that sense of immersiveness into who it is that we design for. So being a researcher, so my background is purely research. I'm not a designer.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to actually help the designers connect with the world that they're actually producing ideas for. And in doing that, we need to bring designers even closer to being in the world of the people that they are designing for. A lot of times they might be just given numbers. So if I describe Nisha, she might be this age, she is, a professional in Toronto, but that doesn't tell us about who Nisha is. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't tell us about Nisha's challenges, her emotions, her attitudes, her aptitudes, or even her behaviors. It doesn't tell us the depth that a designer needs to know that makes them feel a little bit of an aha, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word. So we need to make sure that these details are encapsulated and somehow shared with designers. And we do this in research, especially qualitative research. I will sort of create that little caveat that it is qualitative research that really goes after human stories.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, it really enables designers to connect more with who it is that they design for.
Right. Yeah. It's quite interesting as to while in the research we try to get these aspects of empathy and connection, not just with the stakeholders but with designers themselves, and
Absolutely.
how they communicate that story from the customers to the stakeholders and back again to the end users, again to the customers, and how they feel connected with their background. So with the user research as a field in itself, you've been championing in the research field. How did storytelling help in building that connection or building that empathy to the teams?
This, again, a great point you're raising. So with research and building that sense of empathy, when we're conducting any research activity, one of the first things is making sure that we're not conducting the research in isolation. So a lot of researchers will run away and then they'll come back with all of this information
Right.
for the people that they've studied.
A lot of
It's a
data.
very typical format, right?
Hmm.
And we actually don't advocate that. The more ears that can listen to the story firsthand, the more impactful that's going to be for somebody. The example I always give is if anybody on this session has ever been to a theater production, has ever been to Broadway, has ever been to anything where they can see a story sort of unfold.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way that you get pulled into that world. Even in a good movie, what happens? You sort of forget everything else around you and you get immersed into this wonderful world that has been sort of curated or even crafted exactly for you. And you're shepherded through one person. You have a character that you always focus on. So in Shyam's example, it was his grandfather. And his grandfather was the central character. And you have this character that unfolds in beautiful ways. They have, realities that they face. They have challenges that they might cite. And they also have aspirations of where they want to go. And what you want to do is you want to bring everybody with you who is involved in the production of any, offering, any product, any service, any space, any interface, anything. You want to bring them so that they can actually listen to those stories. So if they're at a movie, at a Broadway production, you come away feeling something. You feel a sense of energy. You feel charged. You've been put in this moment in somebody else's life that might be actually completely different from yours, or might be somewhat relatable, and they both sort of have interesting things at play. But it's much different than, say, you and I actually watching this movie, watching this production, watching this person tell us their story, and then going and telling Babu about it, where he wasn't there. So we have to be able to bring him into that moment of the story. And we have to be able to relate it to him in a way where it's almost as if he was right there with us and he was listening to that story unfold with us. And the power of that is by immersing yourself in that person's world and hearing about what it is that they're going through. We have a really unique lens that we can look at their world with, where we start to see like, why did that person treat them that way? Or what was that challenge that they just felt? And everything sort of pops out to us because we've taken the moment to step into their world and hear what those details are. So in that way, storytelling can be incredibly powerful because it not only helps the people producing what it is, the offerings, the sort of the producers, if we want to call them, designers, stakeholders, anybody in that realm, it helps them not only reflect on what's going on in that person's world, but it also focuses on their ability to socialize those stories. And when socializing those stories, we owe that original character, like Shama's grandfather, we owe that original character the respect of making sure that we capture their story accurately. We don't add in our own bias and our own color. And we make sure that we are sort of responsible for the way their story is shared with the rest of the world. Storytelling is a very, very important vehicle that takes us from the human's world into the world of design, so to speak.
Yeah. So wonderful. That's great insight, and I love the way that you narrated it in itself like a story. um, so yeah, it's very insightful. Would you be able to give us some examples on how, in your experience, how this method of storytelling has turned into an effective product or an effective user experience? Is there an example we could the audience can think about or relate to?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's many, to be honest with you. And
Yeah.
if anybody
Both
listening,
categories.
if anybody listening in on this is curious about this a little bit more, please feel free to reach out at any time. This is the fun of being a researcher, is you really get the chance to immerse yourself in people's lives and their stories, and are held responsible for helping share
Mhm.
those stories. So always happy to talk about this. So a really quick example that comes to mind was a wonderful organization that is based in the US, and they are responsible for helping public schools actually manage their resources. So people, time, and budget, if you can think about that. So public schools, as you can imagine, so many different hats that people have to wear. You have the teachers, you have the administration, people who are supporting from digital technology, especially in times like COVID. These are all sort of realities that we have to consider. And this organization really wanted to understand how the schools and how the district level administrators manage their resources. And what they found is they had a lot of this information, but they weren't able to really get a sense of what the depth of those stories were, and how certain maybe digital tools would help these organizations, these public schools, move forward in being able to do their job better. Always making sure that, you know, the people in the school districts were well cared for, and the students felt attended to, and the teachers felt supported. So we had the unique opportunity with them to be able to understand a little bit more about their constituents, who are all the people, how they do their work, what are challenges and what are sort of solutions that they're looking for in order to be able to help them do their job. And
Mhm.
we made sure that the stakeholders, this could be from the C level down, anybody involved, we made sure that they were there listening in on our sessions and actually partaking of taking notes and observing and understanding exactly what these stories were that district level professionals were sharing with us. What we then did was we were actually able to take back a lot of the information. But for those people who couldn't attend the sessions, everybody
Right.
who listened in on sessions were tasked with creating a story to describe the person that they heard. And in describing them, again, back to what I'd said earlier, they sort of set the stage, what kind of district they're in, how many people they have to cater to, what are, you know, some of the interesting points about that district. And then they presented sort of a little challenge that the person had brought up. Again, talking from the voice of the central character, they were able to describe that character, describe their challenges, to the point where it almost comes to a climax of sorts, where that district professional is having a problem, they cannot actually meet the problem, they can't figure out how to solve for it, and introduce, you know, their hopes. This is what I hoped that an organization would provide me with. This is what I hope that I could do in order to be able to solve the problem that I'm in the middle of. So we actually were able to coach the stakeholders in how they delivered the stories. And these stories need not be long. They were very short. They were like under like 3 minutes, a very quick summary of who they heard from, what the challenge was, what that climax was that they actually hit,
Mm-hmm.
and how potentially they looked for solutions. And in doing so, then it really helped this organization that we worked with think about, here's that person's world today, here's their world tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how we're going to get them to their tomorrow world, to their future world.
Right.
So it was very clear to us that by again, there's lots of detail behind what I'm sharing, but to sort of summarize it, it's making sure that they are listening. We coach them on the type of words to use, how to describe, sort of using rich language, how to describe their story, and making sure that they can actually communicate and socialize that accurately. This was something that we were able to do with this organization. And ironically, we were actually putting together a case study written up for them. And when we reached out to them just actually a month ago, they were telling us still about that power of the storytelling and how it was able to move them forward and how everybody comes back to those stories. Because it's very easy for humans to connect with stories. It's harder for humans to connect with numbers because we don't really define people that we know, even in our personal circles. We don't define them by numbers. We define them by human characteristics and human traits, which is really important for us to realize it resonates with people very easily.
Yeah, you're bang on that. It's the stories that we listen to and get influenced by, and not really the numbers. It has the feelings that it touches our hearts. And thank you for breaking that up in perfect examples. Like how the process went in and how it impacted at different stages of that process. That's a great example. Thank you, Meena, for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah. With that, let me see if we have any questions from our audience. Quickly browse through. I had a question before joining the session. There was a registration to this event, and I also had this question to be requested to be asked when I have this conversation with you. So the question is, I'm just going
Take
to
your time. Hard to ask questions too, by the way. It's not easy to ask questions. So thank
Yeah,
you.
I just don't want to miss on the question in specific. It was a special request.
Sure. Take your time. There's no worries at all.
So here's a question. I guess this participant wanted to get the insight on the format that is used to tell the stories. There are different formats, like you have written a book. We have TV shows. We have our grandparents telling us stories. It is verbal. And now we have video as a format. It is a powerful format which conveys like a real time example, like a real time experience right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely.
So, how do you think videos would impact storytelling as a tool? Or is there any example or any tips to our participants who can use this format for telling their story?
Absolutely. So to address the video question, really, video is a wonderful format to tell stories. What's always interesting is if we, even look at the role of a cinematographer in movies,
Yeah.
you're basically seeing the movie through what they believe, they want you to see, if that's fair to say. So they're curating a very specific incident. They're creating something for you in a way that you see it from a very, very specific lens. And what's important about that is in using video, we want to think about all the different aspects that video can provide us with, because stories are wonderful when they're sort of multisensory, that they can take over so many of our senses, whether we hear things, whether we see things, whether there's something that sort of we feel because there's a loud boom that happens and we suddenly sort of feel it inside. So video actually helps us capture a lot of those details. So as a sort of videographer, as somebody who is sort of looking at it through the lens of the cinematographer, so to speak, we want to make sure that we look at and capture our story from a particular vantage point, a particular perspective. When we've done this with students, for example, I'm a lecturer at a university here, and sometimes I take my students and we go out and we actually will create small stories and small videos. And I tell them to look at it from different perspectives, look at it from different vantage points, so that you're not always just looking at the person, directly, and it's just always, spot on and eye to eye. There might be something there, but there might also be something where we want to consider it from other angles in order to create a particular emotion. What we also want to consider is actually those steps that I just walked us through, where we do have a very tight story. You want to have some sort of scenario that you can actually put people through together. So I have a dear friend, Stefan Muma. If anybody's interested, I will post some of his stuff. But he talks about it in terms of sort of like an inciting incident, something that gets us sort of into a particular situation. There's a problem, as I called it in my sort of very basic terms. And make sure that in that video, you have the problem. It's very obvious what that problem is. You also think about then sort of the rise of getting to that climax that I spoke to. So what actually led sort of to that point of climax? And then what is sort of the tension that's there now? What is the person faced with, and what are things that they're actually thinking forward to? Not that they have to solve, but where do they want to be? Where do they hope to be? And a lot of times that's sort of communicated through emotions. I wish, I wonder, if only. We say these things because we want to get to a different point. So video can really beautifully capture all of that in a way that you actually get to, again, traverse those person's steps and see it through their eyes specifically. And in that whole, process, you can actually think about it in being very, very empathic to what it is that they actually want to experience at a particular time. You really can feel that motion that they're going through.
Yeah, that's nicely put. I guess with the technology and the tools that we have in our hand, I think it is quite a flexible tool to present all those emotions and feelings and present the character on how they can express. With that, thank you so much, Meena, for your time and for sharing wonderful insights and the process in design, the application of storytelling. It's I wish we could have another conversation sometime again planned up.
No problem at all. No, but it's really fun. The key is to have fun with telling stories. Who doesn't love a good story? I mean, we just all love stories. And granted, when we used to hear it from our grandparents sometimes, and we have that as a way of handing down, there's an interesting study that I'm potentially going to be a part of that talks about storytelling for parents. How do you parent in the middle of the pandemic right now? And what are ways that you've coped with taking care of your children? I think anybody with children can definitely appreciate this is not an easy time. But it's important for us to understand that as we share these stories, we can put ourselves in a particular situation and maybe hear somebody else's way of recounting a particular situation or a challenge that they had. And we can also be inspired from that. So there's so much benefit to being able to capture the stories and sharing them. So there's really no right or wrong story. There's more so the act of sharing stories is what I would leave you with.
Nice. Those are beautiful words. It's the act of sharing stories. With that, I guess we are our time. I pass on to Shyam. Thank you again so much, Meena.
Thanks, Nisha. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Shyam, here it's back to you.
Wonderful.
Conversation.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nisha, and thank you so much, Meena, for making me feel warm now. So especially here in California, it's actually pretty cold in the West Coast, and then I could see that finally the sun has come out, and then it feels bright, and then I'm all pumped up.
We like that.
Absolutely. I hope our audience also could get to take away a lot from this, and they are inspired now. And with that, I would walk them through the moving stories, the contest itself, right? So hope everyone is as pumped up, and then now you know how to go about storytelling, right? So So basically, this contest is for anyone and everyone who can tell stories. As Meena mentioned, we all are great storytellers. We all are at the core of it as designers. We have a lot to tell. We observe a lot, and and there is so much to share here, right? So this contest is open to anyone. So basically, you could be a student from any domain, any discipline. You don't necessarily need to have a design background per se. All it takes is for you to take your camera, go and capture that story that you want to share, and that's about it. As simple as that. Or you could be a professional who is someone who is really passionate about storytelling, who have been creating videos, shooting videos for your professional interests, and aiming for positive outcomes, both be at work or to bring any change in the society out there, right? So the um, the format submissions, they've been really made easy for you. It's as simple as you take your mobile phones or even a professional camera, in case if you have one, go and shoot it, edit it very quickly. There's so much software available. Edit it to your liking, add narration, add music, make it interesting. But at the end of it, it's all about sharing a story. That's it, right? So there's no hard and fast rules around it. It could be a quick video, and if you're interested in making it more polished and stuff like that, you could do that too. But at the end of it, a story is what that matters for this challenge. So what is the theme? Again, I think we don't want to make it complicated. At the end of it, it's all about conveying the emotions, and then the theme is empathy. We are all familiar with it, but at the same time, we keep using the word day in and day out. But at the same time, it's a little hard thing, and that's the reason why we are talking today with someone like Meena as to how to connect people in the same way that you get connected to, right? So theme is empathy, and the date for this is 15th November. Is when we are looking to close all the entries. And in terms of process, we made it really simple. You could go to yomo.design/express. Once you're done with recording, hit submit. You just need to go through a simple form and then upload your video, and that's about it. So we'll go through the specs. So in terms of specs, as Meena mentioned very accurately, we are looking for a short video. As she mentioned, you could convey an emotion or an empathy in as little as 3 minutes, right? So that doesn't mean that you have to create a video for 3 minutes. If it is shorter than 3 minutes or maybe 4 minutes here and there, as long as it is conveying the feelings, the emotions that you want to bring out, that's all we are looking for. Your video need to support YouTube, all YouTube supported formats with a standard aspect ratio. It could be of any language, because empathy doesn't have any language, right? So it could be shot in any language. I mean, all you need to make sure is as long as you're adding English credits to it in English, that should be good enough. You don't even need to have any language as such. It could just be as simple as a picture or an illustration with a voiceover on top of it, or just music, right? The music has to be original or royalty free. Give credits where they are due. In case if you're using pictures or stuff, people, characters, and all, anything that you're using, please provide credits. And more importantly, you should add introduction clippings and outro clippings that we are going to provide as a part of this, so that it makes it consistent with all other videos that we are going to host at the end of it on yomo.design. Evaluation criteria, pretty straightforward. When someone watches your video, they should feel that empathy. Empathy has to be delivered. The feelings that you had have to be conveyed through your video, and and obviously it should meet all the specifications that you have mentioned on the left side box in terms of the length and format and all those things. And brownie points for filmmaking. So in case if you are passionate someone, if you can craft a neat, nice video, brownie points for them. But that by no means is going to undermine the empathy that gets delivered, right? So empathy gets the most points as part of this. At the end of it, this is going to be evaluated by a jury, which is a combination of movie makers who will also be speaking at our UX India conference, as Bapa mentioned later, in the second week of December. The jury will also have design leaders at the end of it, because this is for designers primarily, and then we want to ensure that it gets evaluated properly. Right. So, I mean, when I say designers, with the stories, we want to make sure that they lead to some conclusion, as to make people think about taking actions. So that's the reason, right? It's important to narrate a story which makes you think of actions. And storytellers, movie makers, designers, and storytellers will form a jury that will shortlist these movies that we're going to receive. And finally, quick tips. As I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to shoot an elaborate video. In case if you already have some story to tell, especially during these pandemic times, we don't necessarily want you to go out there and then risk your health by recreating that same situation. You could simply use your photos, add narration on top of it, add some music, and that's your empathy story, right? Your narration is going to make people connect. You could also use sketches and add narration on top of it. Or if you could shoot a video, that would be great. Shoot a video, given your circumstances, ensuring that you are taking enough precautions, and then add narration on top of it with music, of course, royalty free. That completes your short video. See, it's as simple as that. So what's at stake? Why should I even take part in this? Apart from all the things that we have discussed, because storytelling is a great tool for us. So this gives an opportunity for you to go and try out your storytelling techniques. So it's a kind of helping you learn the craft kind of thing. And then once you tell these powerful stories, they will, as we all know, they can, if the story is told in the right way, they can trigger change, right? As change makers, I think it's in our interest, and it should be our hobby to go and create stories. And as I mentioned, there are two categories: students and professionals. Both the categories will stand to win these awards: best film in a given category, special jury award, and People's Choice awards. You will also be given certificates for your story creation from our guest movie maker speakers at the conference. And on top of that, all the shortlisted entries will get a free entry to UX India conference. Our conference is gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of attention. We already have a great number of speakers from diverse backgrounds who have submitted their entries for talks, and then we are in the process of shortlisting and curating the content. So with that, you can go to umo.design/express to get to see all the details over there. And thank you so much for taking your time, and congratulations for all of you. In case if you, we hope that you're truly inspired now, and as a true ambassador of design, we want you to go and create these videos and then share with the world out there. We sincerely thank you for your passion and efforts that you have been bringing to the community, and in helping umo.design Foundation keep doing what it does. Good design for better living, right? Wish you all the very best. In case if you have any questions, reach out to us at the email that is mentioned below. And don't forget to create your videos and then submit them at umo.design/express. Thank you, everyone. Any more questions? Any questions there? Yeah. Any questions? You can take a question.
Thanks. I think there are some questions coming up. So let me see who is actually like. Bala is asking, please explain, how do you tell effectively? I think he's talking about the storytelling effectively. Maybe Meena, would you like to answer this?
Sure, no problem. So, Bala, what I would suggest is actually you you actually just write the story first in those steps, and I can send those steps over to Bapu for Bapu and Shama to be able to share it with everybody. But the best way is to just sort of very tightly write what the story is that you want to go through. And once you see that, then you can add in sort of the layer of emotion that you want to be able to create. And make sure by the end of it, especially like if we, again, sorry, Sham, you actually gave a really good story, so I'm going to keep on coming back to it. But basically, if you think of the end of Sham's story, we all wanted to help his grandfather. We all want to step in and do something. It sort of gets people to think about what they can do to solve that problem. So you want to make sure that as you're layering in the emotion, that by the end of it, somebody feels the very same thing with your story, which is, I'd like to step in and help. And sort of generate that sense of emotion will actually really help in delivering it effectively. I hope that helps.
Great.
No.
Yeah, Nisha, I want to say something.
Yeah, I can take up the next question. I think that is for Shyam. Shyam, if you can help, Ranjit is asking, can participants use a short video which they have submitted in other short film festivals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as long as it fits our submission criteria, and more importantly, if it is something that they truly believe that it conveys empathy as they feel it, then of
Mm-hmm.
course, yes, please, yeah.
Yeah,
We take.
that'll be very handy to be able to submit to us. Another one from Kumaresh is, do I need to be a designer to participate?
No, even though we are talking to design community today, because predominantly Design has been in the domain of design, but this contest is open for anyone, everyone. And again, I keep iterating this again. Design's interest is to expand the reach of the design goodness to not just design community, to the wider folks out there as well. So yeah, as far as this contest is concerned, it's open for anyone and everyone. With an inclination to share stories, right? So everybody has a story to tell. So it's for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Question from Ranjit to Meena. Could you please tell the connection between empathy and emotional design?
Yes, fair question. So from the researcher's vantage point, empathy is the act of actually understanding who it is that we produce for. So call them consumers, if that's fair to say. So it's the act of anybody really trying to step into somebody else's world and appreciating sort of the 360, the holistic view of that world, their behaviors, their aptitudes, their attitudes, and their emotions, really stepping into that world. Emotional design is really the result of that, is making sure that indeed you've considered all of those factors and you've brought it in and it's embedded within the design that you've created, so that that consumer actually does get a sense of that same emotion that you were trying to create. That's our interpretation of that.
Nice. Yeah, I remember we covered that in our conversation, and wonderful that you touched upon a few more points on that. Um, Looks like we are about with all the questions. We have one more from Vibha Chetan. Sure, Vibha, we're gonna post the registration link. It's the URL is coming on the video itself, and we also gonna post a reference to this recording, so you can have all the details. So
Great.
yeah,
Any other questions, Nisha?
I think we are on time as well, and that's perfect timing even with the audience. Any more questions, we will be happy to take over, and please email it to us or connect with us on social media. We'll be happy to connect you back with Meena, with Shram, with Papu, or with our team, and we are here for you.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
All right.
Meena.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Babu. Thanks, Nisha. And thanks, everyone who has attended the call today. We'll see you on the other side of the contest.
All right. Take care. Everybody be safe.
Bye.